We had some technical difficulties there. Welcome, everyone. Today is Monday, February 9th. This is another edition of the Metro Ice Out Report. I am joined by several local elected officials from state, school board, and city. And today we are going to hear from several of them to talk about the latest updates here in the Metro, given the current ICE occupation and invasion. One of our core responsibilities as local elected officials is to ensure that our constituents know what's happening here on the ground and what we're doing to support them, especially in this moment. We're going to keep on doing this until we no longer need this report to occur. We're unified in a message of ICE out immediately and ICE out now. The first official that I will go to is Senator Scott Dibble.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Just by way of a quick introduction, I wanted to say a thank you to everyone in this community who has been doing so much. Minnesotans and Minneapolitans continue to display incredible resilience and resistance to the ongoing federal occupation. Every person out there who's been protecting our neighbors, delivering food, standing up for our community, doing whatever they can, are heroes. Many legislators have been on the ground doing the same work, but we've also been hard at work developing a legislative response to the federal assault. We've been working with community members, constitutional scholars, partners across the country, other legislators to craft legislation we can pass that will protect Minnesotans, hold ICE accountable, and support everyone who has been affected by this occupation. Next week, next Tuesday, the 17th, the legislature goes back into session, and we'll be bringing legislation forward that responds to this unprecedented attack on our community. So to that, strong legislative response to ICE and Operations so-called Metro Surge is grounded in several key areas. First, protecting the constitutional rights of Minnesotans in our communities, holding ICE and the federal government accountable for its overreach, supporting the needs of those who have been most affected by this attack. So under the subject of protecting constitutional rights, one critical need is to protect our essential and sensitive spaces, such as our courts, our healthcare facilities, and our schools. Illinois has legislation that protects people in these places, and will strengthen Minnesota's laws to make sure that these are off limits to federal agents. That, of course, is evocative of the Fourth Amendment and the fact that spaces have been being entered without the benefit of judicial warrants and the like. Under the subject of accountability of ICE and federal actions, delivering justice, we must hold federal agents who break the law accountable. We can pass a state law that replicates or aspires to a similar federal law that's recently been diminished, but we're going to strengthen this at the state level that would allow civil action against federal agents, allowing Minnesotans to sue the federal government for their abuses. Moving on, we are going to ban ICE from wearing masks and otherwise deceptive guises and using bogus license plates, things like that. Minnesota residents will be able to sue ICE agents when they don't follow Minnesota laws, such as the duty to render aid. And supporting those who have been hurt by this occupation, by this attack, by this federal agency. We know that this occupation has been a disaster for Minnesota. While our immediate work is addressing the crisis facing people right now, we must also be ready to support the people who have been hurt and the businesses that have been hurt. One of our legislative priorities has been to support the economic recovery of the immigrant businesses and corridors that have been adversely affected by this horrific occupation. We know that we have a lot of work to do today and in the future to help our community, and that's what we're going to do. I want Minnesotans to know that the legislature will continue to do everything we can to support and protect our community at this moment, and we'll do everything we can to assure accountability. Thank you, Council Member. That's my report.
Thank you so much, Senator Dibble. Next, we'll go to Representative Greenman.
Well, good afternoon. I am Representative Emma Greenman. I represent Minneapolis, and my day job is as a national voting rights lawyer. And so what I want to talk about, and I'm going to try to speed through it, But we are going to be talking about this now until November and beyond, is the escalation and the execution of some of Trump and his regime's plan to abuse power in order to use both executive power and force to interfere with the 2026 elections and with voting. This is not a new threat from Trump and his regime. This is the president of January 6th who actually executed a plan that failed, but showed us some of the ways to use state power in order to try to interfere with an election. But the reason we need to talk about it now is in the last few weeks, we've really started to see a plan and some testing of putting it into action. Minnesota is both a target and also, I would say, one of the best prepared to help create a plan to defend our elections and our voters from these threats. So just a brief recap of the three things following that we have seen happen in the last few weeks, escalate in the last few weeks. First is Trump's illegal use of executive power to commandeer local elections. So it is really important to say that the Constitution gives states, not the president, the power to run our elections. That's why the courts have blocked two executive orders that he issued back in March of 2022 that tried to impose voter restrictions on states without having the legal authority to do that. Last Monday, Trump escalated this attempt to unilaterally and illegally impose voter restrictions by now saying, and it's important for me to quote, this is Donald Trump, the president of the United States, we should take over voting in at least 15 places, 15 places, the Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. So first of all, to reiterate, the Constitution does not give the president or the executive the power to do that. And this is the president publicly describing his plan to seize control of elections, not everywhere, but in a few Democratic cities, in a set of Democratic cities that are controlled by his opposition party. Minnesota and Minneapolis has every reason to believe we are on the list. The same week, Steve Bannon, his close personal advisor, said, and I quote, "You are damn right, we're gonna have ICE around the polls come November." And when asked about it, the press secretary, Karen Leavitt, said, well, she doesn't know of any plans. She refused to rule it out. We know what it looks like to see the president use illegal, lawless power. And so I think taking this very seriously is really important. The second thing is Trump's DOJ is attempting to commandeer private voter data for no legal or legitimate purpose. They have been demanding sensitive private data on registered voters all over the country, including millions of Minnesotans. They are suing Minnesota and other states, mostly Democratic states, to get this data that they have not been able to get. The courts have blocked it because they do not have a legitimate reason to have the Social Security number and private data of Minnesota voters. 2 weeks ago, and folks will remember and how this is coming together, that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, so not the person in charge of our voting, sent us what our Secretary of State called a ransom note, saying they would consider lifting the federal occupation and the ICE paramilitary force if the state of Minnesota gives them these voter rolls. This is demanding our voter rolls under the barrel of a gun, and we should make sure that we're clear about that. This is compounded by the substantiated fears of the way the Trump administration has been covertly compiling and using data across the federal government through DOJ, and now what we are seeing on our streets, which is surveillance and the collection of data without any transparency and without the legal authority to do so. And then third, they are using the DOJ and the FBI to interfere with state and local elections authorities right now. We saw this in Fulton County last week when they sent the FBI and the Director of National Intelligence, again, not somebody with control or jurisdiction over our elections, to seize 2020 ballots and election materials in opposition to the county's nonpartisan election office. 2 notes on that. It wasn't the U.S. Attorney in Georgia who's leading it. It's in Missouri. And the local FBI leadership left in Georgia as this was happening. So what it tells you is that, like we have seen in Minnesota in the U.S. Attorney's office and the local FBI, people, civilians who have been doing these jobs for decades in partnership with our state and local authorities are leaving because they see what is happening, which is Washington and the Trump administration is imposing on them using the FBI and the DOJ to interfere. So what this means for Minnesotans, it is important that we are clear, and I wanted to spend the time on what's going on, that the president is broadcasting this. They're actually putting this into effect, a plan for federal intervention into the 2026 election. This is not theoretical anymore, and it is a violation of the U.S. Constitution and U.S. law. They are also using the pretext of immigration and national security the same way that they have used the pretext of immigration and fraud on our streets to go after citizens and non-citizens alike in the streets around the state. They are using that as a way and a pretext to try to use federal power. And we are going to see that again in the elections context. And they are already doing this. They are already doing this at the FBI, the DOJ, and the Department of Homeland Security. So what can we do about it? And I think that this is really, really important because we are not powerless. We have to use the power we have where we have it, and we have quite a bit. So like everywhere else, it is really important that we are talking about that and that people believe their eyes. There is no use, and it is not helpful to sort of look away and hope away and not remember our history, which is the same sets of things happened in January 6th. We can't minimize this. We need to believe our eyes about what they're saying, and then we can make a plan to defend our voters and our democracy against these threats. Second, we have to use the power we have where we have it. That means states' legal response, which we are already seeing the Secretary of State and the Attorney General are suing to prevent our voter data from being taken. We have to work with local officials to protect their ability to administer their rights. And then probably most importantly here in Minnesota, what we have learned, right, is when institutions will not save us, the people organizing together will. So we have the tools to fight an out of control, lawless president. We have shown that over and over in the last now going on third month. So we need to take that organizing, that infrastructure building, and also the very personal work that people are doing and think about how we are going to apply that in the primary and particularly the general elections. And then the last thing I will say is that this is a good opportunity for every person who has the right to vote, every citizen, to make their plan to vote. You can vote at home if that's where you feel most comfortable. You can vote early if that's how you feel most comfortable. We can make a plan, and neighborhoods should make a plan for voting on election day. But know that federal agents do not have the legal authority to be in our polling places, and they are trying to scare us out of our fundamental rights. And in Minnesota, as my colleague, Senator Dibble said, we have shown that we have the courage and the power to do on the streets what we need to do to protect our democracy.
Thank you so much, Representative Greenman, for that update. Next, I am excited to invite on my colleague of the Minneapolis City Council, Councilmember Robin Wansley.
Thank you, Councilmember Chowdhury. I'm really proud to share some of the updates that our colleagues have really advanced over the past coming days in response to the occupation that we've been experiencing now for a little over a month. And I'll break them up into two categories, one of which is, or one of the most pressing needs, is that residents need material protections in the current moment. And one of those key protections needed or resources that's been identified is the need for legal services. So under Councilmember Chavez, who represents Ward 9 leadership, he brought forward, and a number of us, actually, I believe the entire city council signed on to co-author his funding resolution for $500,000 that would support residents having to navigate our very chaotic and difficult immigration legal system, specifically addressing habeas corpus cases, as we're seeing right now, just at the rapid pace in which ICE agents are abducting our residents. It's very difficult to often track where loved ones are being detained, if they've been sent out on planes. So really honing in on how can we make sure we have resources to support the release of our neighbors after being abducted and before they're sent to detention centers. So really proud of the fact that that was something that unanimously the body agreed upon, and we devoted resources into addressing and protecting our neighbors as we're experiencing this campaign of terror by ICE and the Trump administration as a whole. Following that, another major need has been housing stability, or the housing instability caused by this occupation that has contributed to growing eviction rates of our neighbors. That's making it challenging for people to leave their homes to go to work so that they can pay what has been now January's rent, February's rent, and we're coming up on March's rent due coming up on March 1st. And just a few weeks ago, City Council, as here in Minneapolis, as well as in St. Paul and Roseville, and we know a number of other cities have been amplifying this call to action, but we've been asking Governor Walz to declare eviction moratorium so people can have that legal protection in place to shelter in their homes and not have to come in contact with ICE agents as much as possible, and don't have to then worry about being displaced from their homes because they can't go to work and make rent that's due. But nevertheless, we know now for the past couple of weeks, Governor Walz has not executed that action. So City Council has been looking at ways in which we could show up. And one of the ways that we have identified is providing resources so that people can get rental assistance so that they can cover whatever rent is due. And we know this is going to hopefully complement some of the actions that's being moved forward at the state level that hopefully will include an emergency rental assistance package as well. But we moved $1 million just last Thursday to Hennepin County to one of their rental assistance programs that would allow residents to access that. And again, get the resources that they need. And we know residents, regular working class people, have spent this entire occupation organizing amongst themselves GoFundMes, fundraisers to raise what is now tens of millions of dollars to help people cover their rent. We had one parent leader of Minneapolis Public Schools share just last week that Minneapolis Public School families have raised over $1 million themselves to support rental assistance needs for our neighbors. But once again, we will not GoFundMe our way out of an eviction crisis, out of a housing crisis. So government agencies all need to step up and match the energy of our residents to also bring some money to the table to alleviate this crisis. So I'm very proud of our colleagues of bringing forward that $1 million for rental assistance. And now we're waiting for Mayor Frye to issue either his support through approval or veto, which would signal a disapproval. Following that, we also introduced a policy called Pause Eviction Save Lives, which would extend the pre-filing eviction notice from 30 days to 60 days temporarily, which essentially gives families another month to access rental assistance programs before eviction is filed. And that way they don't have to have that be put on their record. And it also gives landlords the ability to receive financial compensation, which they're, of course, looking for to also keep residents housed. So we brought that forward last Thursday. It was our goal to have an expedited timeline because, again, we're coming up on March 1st, rent being due. And we wanted to make sure that this protection could be in place so residents can have more time, especially as the state legislature is meeting and convening resources around this. Philanthropic partners are also putting together financial relief as well. We wanted to give, again, families and ordinary folks in our city the time to access those resources that's being pulled together before having to deal with a formalized eviction. Unfortunately, a supermajority of my colleagues did not support an expedited process that would have had this ordinance be put in place ahead of the March 1st deadline. This was a time in which we could have acted both proactively and also in a very timely response so that we're getting ahead of evictions as opposed to having to respond to the substantial increase that we know is coming. But nevertheless, we still introduced that ordinance, and all things considered, we are on a timeline to take up final consideration and ideally passage of that policy early March, so that residents can still have that protection in place ahead of April 1st's rent deadlines. So again, I'm just proud of the ways in which our council is being responsive to the immediate material needs while also doing everything that we can to work with other governmental partners at all levels to maximize resources and to get them to maximize their levels of authority to also show up for residents. If that means, again, pushing for eviction moratorium for Governor Walz to declare that, we're still raising that banner, making sure that all partners are coming together to move forward a substantial rental assistance package. We still support those efforts. And I know in the next coming weeks, which I'm pretty sure you're going to have another council member to report on, we're moving also significant things related to supporting our businesses that's been impacted by this occupation as well. And once again, kudos to Councilmember Chavez, who's moving expeditiously to move these resources to keep our neighbors safe, keep them stable while we're experiencing this occupation. So we're not done, essentially. And we're trying to, again, match the same level of commitment and dedication as our neighbors using our fullest extent of our powers. So again, very proud of the work that we're doing, and there's more to come.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Wansley. Glad to have you on. Next, we're going to get an update about the Minneapolis Public Schools from the school board chair, Chair Colin Beachy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for everyone being here again. I think the first thing that I'd like to address here, as everyone I think has heard, that we have extended the online learning option for our students now until April 5th. And I guess I want to be clear about this. I think we're frustrated that we have to do this. Our students belong in school. They belong with their friends. They belong with their teachers. They need to be able to get out in the playground and play and just be kids. So, but going into this, our number one priority is the safety of our students. And the federal government has still not made the conditions on the ground safe enough for our families to not only go to school, but just go about their daily lives. So we need to make sure that our students and families are protected and feeling safe. You have to be feeling safe before you can even begin to learn. You can't learn when you're afraid. And this is why this occupation needs to stop. It's going to have long-term psychological damage for many of our students. So I am proud to talk again about what we have gotten started here with M Health Fairview, and we're working on mental health programming and supports that we can have in place for our students, not just now in the short term, but for the long term. This, especially for our younger students, will have some long-term psychological effects. We also have been working with Every Meal, and so we are getting meals that are being sent to our students who are not able to be on campus at this time. So our schools, though, are still remaining places of care and of learning, and our teachers are I will put our teachers up against any teachers in the country. They have a lot of strain and a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, but this is what we do as teachers. We put that aside because we have to stand up for our kids, put the brave face on, even if we're not feeling it ourselves. So as we're moving forward, I'm proud that this district has the resources to be able to do what we are doing right now. But with some of our state legislators who are on here, these resources are not unlimited, and there's some financial costs here that are going to be hurting this district as this occupation goes on. And so we're going to need to having some conversations about some relief and help that we could possibly get from the state as well. But one thing I just want to say that I just want to thank again everybody who is here and is continuing to be here and is continuing to do the work that we are doing. Shortly before I was on this meeting, I was on a meeting with school board members from Orange County out in California. They are about the fourth or fifth school board from around the country that I've talked to about our experiences and how to prepare themselves. The one thing that I have always stressed with them, and they had said that this is very clear to them, that it's the community. And it's the public officials working together that are helping us get through all of this, and people standing up for our children. We're a school district. We don't have our own police force, but we have parents. So we've got those winter warriors that are doing what we can for our kids. And so I am authorized to give you a hello from them. They see us, they are proud of us, and they know that we are showing them the way and how to handle this. And so just thank you again, everybody, for everything that you're doing for our residents, and especially those that are our most precious asset, and that is our children. So thank you again, everyone, and keep up the good work. I'm sorry that we have to keep going through this, but we will get through this, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. So what is really, really important to get across to everyone right now is, even as the federal government has stated that they are going to do a drawdown, we as community members in Minnesota have not seen that drawdown. We have not seen that change. Even as early as today, we are hearing reports from community members that ICE is out here in the parking lots of people's workplaces, in the parking lots of local businesses. Last week, there were many instances where schools needed to go out into a shutout, lockout protocol. This is not normal. This is not a change. And we still continue to see our community members having to be hyper vigilant, go out and legally observe, whistle when they see, to let their neighbors know that it's not safe to be out here. It is extremely, extremely challenging for every single person to just go about their daily life. Parents are scared to bring their kids to daycare. There are community members right now that have been sheltered in place for months. They have lost the primary breadwinner in their household, or themselves have not been able to make an income because they are so scared of being detained or profiled just for the color of their skin. And we're seeing that as elected officials coming in, whether it's through email, through phone calls from community members throughout our state, throughout Minneapolis. And that's the really important thing for all of us to get across, is that this is going to be a day at a time. If you're out there right now, please stay safe, and thank you for all that you're doing. We're all going to need to collectively repair for years the harm that has been done due to this unjust federal occupation of ICE agents. And we're standing firmly that this just needs to end fully. There needs to be no ICE in the state of Minnesota, period, and no other community should have to experience that. So our next Metro ICE Out report will be on Wednesday, February 11th at noon. We are expecting this week to have Senator Jen McEwen and Senator May Quaid to share what they're seeing throughout the region, to share what they're seeing and hearing from rural communities in Minnesota. And we'll be getting other local leaders to share other information and updates to you as community members. We're going to keep on doing this until we no longer have a reason to do that. ICE out. Everyone, please stay safe, please stay vigilant, and thank you to everyone that